Greetings and salutations, Dio nerds. Today's program is brought to you by the letters U and Q. Not only is the University of Queensland the centre of learning and excellence in Queensland, well, according to their brochure anyway, it's also built on a geological wonderland. Hey, would I lie to you? So come on, let's get our heads together and get a degree in the complex geology and amazing history of this Brisbane icon. So you know what I'm gonna say.
Let's rock.
The rocks in the UQ precinct are old and young. Cool, eh? The western part of the uni, and for that matter, the western part of the entire of St Lucia, is all Brisbane phyllite. As we already know, this is a Lake Denovian rock, Paleozoic 360 to 408 million years ago, and most of St Lucia is on this rock. It varies in composition, from traditional dark stratified metamorphic siltstones with lots of silica, quartz and chert, to weathered argillite, that clay looking stuff. Most of modern St Lucia is one of Brisbane's hill areas. It's hilly because the rocks are resistant to erosion. They are regionally metamorphosed, but they've also been folded, and when rock is folded, the outside gets stretched and weakened, and the inside gets compressed and much stronger. Folding in rocks comes in two basic ways, anticline and syncline. Yes, there are others, but for Brisbane's geology, these two will get us most places. Syncline all comes from Greek, syn meaning together and cline meaning to lean. Anticline again is all Greek to me, anti meaning opposite and cline meaning to lean. The ridges in St Lucia are the cause of old anticline folds, as is the Swan Road Ridge, and frankly, most of the high ridges in Brisbane's north. You can see it in the rocks. There are small faults everywhere, and quite a lot of shattered strata and fault gouge. Clay bits of broken rock and little pieces of all sorts of gear all jammed in between the layers. The basement rocks under the actual University of Queensland is mainly Brisbane tuff. This is a late Triassic or early Jurassic rock. It's supposed to be contained to the uni campus, according to the maps, and you can definitely see this rock on the ground on the campus. But I found an outcrop way up on Ryan's Road, in an unconformity, with phyllite under it and something that looks like argillite on top of it, nearly a kilometre away. So, maps are cool, but never completely accurate. Here in green you can see the extent of the Brisbane tuff on the University Peninsula. Over here in purple we have the Bunya phyllite. Most of St Lucia is made out of this, so you'd expect it to look like this. And in green we have the Quaternary River gravels, as you'd expect, dropped onto the peninsula by the river. It's where most of the sugarcane was grown. And in this little pocket of green here, or turquoise, we have the Aspley Formation, a little piece of sedimentary formation from the rest of Brisbane. I told you this was complex. For such a small area, you can walk across this in 15 minutes. We'll do an entire episode on the Brisbane tuff, but basically this is a welded volcanic ash that came from the north in the late Triassic or early Jurassic period, and it's tough. It's a fine looking stone for building. We've already talked extensively about the Bunya phyllite. It makes up most of St Lucia and frankly most of Brisbane. The Aspley Formation is a Mesozoic formation containing sandstone conglomerate and some shales. And it's not at Aspley, it's all over the north of Brisbane, and a little bit of it is at Aspley. There's a dedicated episode about the Aspley Formation coming up. The river alluvium is exactly what it sounds like. For once in geology, it's just an accumulation of river gravels and soils. The area where UQ is now was prime farmland in the 1860s. Why T-Rocks, I hear you ask? Because it was covered with lots of alluvium, river silt and loamy soils from millions of years of deposits. A riverbank is part of the river. It's just not always under the water, most of the time, but in a flood, the river needs it back and it leaves a little tip afterwards, some fantastic new soils. In 1860, William Dart recognised this. He planted sugar cane and built a sugar mill. The area was known then as Intrapilli Pocket. The Coldridge Mill, named after the town in England where he departed for Australia, was often referred to as Dart's Mill. It is said to have been the first sugar mill in Queensland and was situated at the bottom of, get this, Mill Road. Surprise, surprise. The last of the old mill disappeared.
I can see my flat from here.
Along with nearly everything else on the pocket in the floods of 1893. In 1872, Alexander Wilson purchased the Coldridge plantation from Dart, renamed it to St Lucia after the Caribbean island where he was born. His plans were for a housing development and the St Lucia estate was born. And the Ironside estate was born nearby, named after Wilson's wife's maiden name. Not to put a damper on the achievements of these men, the islander slaves, Kanakas, were first introduced into Queensland in 1847 from employment on cotton plantations. In the succeeding years, they formed a cheap labour base in which the sugar industry, and quite frankly Queensland, was built. And Dart definitely had Kanakas working for him at Redland Bay a few years later, so almost certainly had them here in St Lucia. And if one of them had them, they all would have had them, to remain competitive. So yeah, slavery in Brisbane.
But there was no slavery in Australia.
Wrong again, ScoMo. Not really something you read much about in the local histories. And like in the United States of America, the first slaves here were also white British convicts. Although they were not possessions, they worked without pay or reward to death or release. So I suppose in the day, it wasn't much of a bridge to cross to get to using South Sea Islanders. From my favourite manual of hypocrisy, Exodus 21:16. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him, shall be put to death. So that's nice. It must have been a big hit at the new Ironside church they all built on the hill.
You are to be stoned to death.
Sorry, I digress.
I am a little disappointed.
Hey T-Rocks, you promised us a murder in last week's outro. What's going on? Okay, it's coming. And if you behave, we'll have 2 murders. How did the uni get to where it is? Here at St Lucia. The uni started in Victoria Park in Brisbane in 1909, now the old medical school building behind the hospital. 4 years later, Dr. James O'Neill Mayne and his sister, Miss Mary Amelia Mayne, provided funds to buy the St Lucia site where the university's main campus is now located. Now these are 2 of the most awesome Queenslanders that ever lived, and it's a packed field. This is the son and daughter of Patrick Mayne, you know, Mayne Station, Patrick Lane, etc. A butcher, handy if you're a homicidal maniac, who had a shop in Queen Street, on the site of the now awesome Brisbane Arcade, also one of T-Rox's favourite places to go in Bris Vegas. He was once mayor of Brisbane, and almost certainly a complete homicidal nutjob of the highest order.
Here's Johnny.
I recommend you read The Mayne Inheritance for a detailed look at this Muppet's life. He killed 2 men at Kangaroo Point and stuffed their dismembered bodies down several wells. Nice guy. He's also suspected of multiple more murders in his lifetime. But his kids were okay. They realised they carried the bad guy gene and did not want to marry or breed. so as to stop the trait right there. A big sacrifice in their day. And maybe the guy was a bit gay, but, you know, T-Rox doesn't pass judgment. They donated £50,000. Hey, they could have built 4 more St Bridges churches with that lot. In 1927. That is a lot of money, just to allow the uni to procure the site and start to build the new campus here at St Lucia. These were A1 OK people, and what did they get in return for their sacrifice and generosity? They got a building named after them in 1973, so that's nice. So enough about the rocks under the uni, now for the rocks the uni is actually made of. Helidon sandstone and Greymere granodiorite. That's the short term anyway. The Helidon sandstone was chosen due to its fantastic suitability as a building stone. It was cheap, fairly close to transport, Helidon being between here and Toowoomba. And it was an unbelievably beautiful stone when it was worked by skilled stonemasons, which it most certainly was here. The locally available granodiorite was deemed to be unsuitable for a building material as it contains pyrite inclusions, causing it to fail over time. Also, most of the local deposits had been worked out by them. Cedar Creek granodiorite would have been great, but the quarry was closed. So, granodiorite from a little west of Warwick was chosen, and it is fantastic. There's also local tuff used in the walls and external features, as by then most of the high quality tuff in Brisbane had also been worked out. Okay Geo Nerds, comment below if you feel the need. Next week we'll have a look at the rocks of Brisbane's CBD, what they are and where they are. Let's take a little field trip, John Rogers style. It'll be a blast. And don't forget, geologists make great life partners. They're very sentimental. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this stuff, and hey, you made it this far, please help us to poke the algorithm and smash that like button like it's Space 1999. And if you want to see more, subscribe and share this with, say, 1,000 of your closest friends. And let's see just how far that little algorithm can go before its CPU explodes. Copy you later.